Hi there. I'm going to be giving you a rundown of some of the new patents that have been released or granted in the guitar space in January of 2026. Some of the patents that were granted in January of this year were pretty interesting, so I hope there are more interesting ones in the coming months as well, but we'll see. In January 6th, Jeff Kiesel of Escondido, part of Kiesel Guitars. I visited Escondido before a few times, but I didn't know there was a large guitar company there. They've been around since 1946. They started as a pickup manufacturing company. The sons of the founders are keeping it going, and Jeff Kiesel, one of the sons of the founder, just got a design patent for a guitar that looks like this. It looks like it's the A2 neck-through model on their website, and it looks quite pretty. I don't have any neck-through guitars, but I love the concept of a neck-through guitar, and I'd like to build one myself someday. Two players that I recognize that have played Kiesel guitars are Greg Howe and the frontman for Blue Oyster Cult, which is a fun band if you haven't heard them. If you're part of the younger generation, hasn't been exposed yet. The model that they're already selling, that this design patent is about, is made in 6, 7, and 8 strings. Alright, moving on. January 13th, Diodario, a company that's quite well known. In fact, these strings I'm about to install are Diodario strings. They got a design patent for a rechargeable tuner. It uses USB-C. Yeah, seems like a nice improvement to tuners. On January 13th, Taylor Guitars got a design patent for a new headstock. It does have a noticeable difference than the headstocks at least the headstocks I've seen from their guitars. I have one Taylor guitar, and they have 3 little curves at the top of their headstock, which results in 2 points. And in this new design, as you can see, that middle curve has a hill there instead of just a little curve. It's kind of fun to me that eventually I'll see this design in person, but I saw it first on a patent. It's kind of a nerdy thing to be excited about, but that's okay. Okay, here's an interesting one. On January 13th, Gibson Guitars got a patent for their design for the Theodore model guitar, which is a guitar that they first released in 2022 and has quite an interesting story behind it. It's named Theodore after the president of Gibson Guitars back in 1950 through 1966, and he was vice president for 2 years before he was president. So he was around when some very classic electric guitar shapes came out, and I'm sure he was a hand in the development and design of those. They include the Les Paul, the SG, the Flying V, the ES335, the Moderne, which I'm not a huge fan of personally. To each their own. We all have our own tastes. The Firebird, and humbucking pickups, and the Tune-o-matic bridge. And around that time, in 1957, he made a drawing of what is now the Theodore model that they're manufacturing. And someone at Gibson, Matt Kaler, I think he was the president of product design, was going through the archives and looking at concept art for lap steel guitars, and a piece of paper fell out of whatever he was looking through, and it was one of Ted's drawings. And I'm glad he pursued the idea of bringing that drawing into production, because it has a cool look, and the more shapes the merrier. I like this shape a lot. I think it has kind of a medieval look to me, which I think is very cool. A lot of musicians from different genres are not going to be afraid to use this one. I don't know why anyone would be afraid. If you like it, just use it. And I think a lot of people will like it, is what I'm saying. Okay, one guitar I left out that Ted McCarty was there for when it was designed, maybe he helped design it, I don't know, was the Explorer. And this is an Explorer that I built, but it's a little different. As some of you may have noticed, it has a curved top to it, which, because I love Les Pauls and they have curved tops, and I've seen some Les Pauls without curved tops, and it's just not the same to me. And at some point I was like, why doesn't the Explorer have a curved top? I think it would look cool as well. And I looked online and I saw no one had done it, at least as far as I could tell. So I made one, and I quite like the way it looks. But one thing that's interesting, if you look at the Theodore drawing that Ted McCarty made before he called it the Theodore, I don't think he came up with that name for it himself. You can see that there's a pickguard on it with a little metal piece, suggesting that it's upraised, not part of the body, which is how the models they're releasing now are. And I guess how this design pattern looks. So I'm just going to take a little guess at what was in Ted McCarty's mind when he made that drawing. I think he wanted a curved top Theodore. Unfortunately, at the time of recording this video, I was so blinded by my love for carved top guitars that I didn't notice Ted McCarty had specifically written body, alder, not carved, flat. So I suppose I was wrong. Okay, back to me talking about how Gibson was lazy by choosing to go with the flat top, which I'm sure is harder or more expensive to produce. But I think it would look way cooler as well, just like I think that this Explorer looks cooler with the curved top. So please, I'm very curious what people think. Let me know in the comments what you think about this curved top Explorer and what you'd think about a curved top Theodore. They just look so much cooler when light reflects off of them at different points. Oh, when it's not just all reflecting when that flat surface is reflecting the light. I love that there's at least one little surface reflecting light almost all the time on a curved top. It's just me, and I'm sure a lot of other people. Let me know what you think. I don't know anything about the industry or whether they'd be losing a bunch of money by going through the effort to make curved tops. But from a guitar lover and player standpoint, I think they're much cooler, and it would be worthwhile. Outsider's perspective. Alright, one thing I'm wondering about in case the right person happens to watch this video, someone who knows something about design patents. I'm curious about why they were able to get a design patent for a design that was clearly made 70 years ago. It was drawn in 1957, maybe because it hasn't seen the light of day until around 2022 or so. But my understanding is that designs or prior art that exist earlier than 1 year from when you file your design patent, that prior art is grounds to reject your claim for a design patent. So that's one thing I'm curious about as someone who's studying for the patent registration exam. So if anyone knows, put it in the comments for me. Thank you. Alright, this is an interesting one. On January 13th of this year, the makers of Snapchat Snap Inc. got a utility patent on a method and system for tutorials on an eyewear device, as in glasses. So in my own words, the patent is for like a Guitar Hero kind of system or gamified approach to learning an instrument. So in the utility patent, there's drawings for it being used with a piano and with a trumpet. But I'm sure, even though it's not drawn and described, I'm sure it could be done with guitars and clarinets and flutes, saxophones, oboes, harps. Harps actually would make a lot of sense because their notes are in a line, like on a piano and on a trumpet. Piano has 88 notes in a line, trumpet has 3 in a line, so that would work well with a Guitar Hero kind of format. So would a harp. But a guitar would be tougher because the notes are on a line, but there's 6 strings. So instead of a 2-dimensional set of notes coming at you, it would need to be a little bit more 3-dimensional, kind of like with an oboe as well, or a clarinet or a flute, or these woodwind instruments that have notes in different spots. They're not all in a line exactly. At least the keys for them are not in a line. Some of them are right next to each other, perpendicular to the length of the instrument. But I'm sure it can be done. I'm sure it can be accomplished with those instruments as well. At least it'll be attempted. Who knows how much it'll be used. So this technology would definitely allow beginners to an instrument to be able to play the songs they want to play much sooner in the learning process, because they don't have to actually memorize things themselves, and they don't have to have their brains hold the instructions about where to put their fingers. I guess that's part of the memorization process. And they'll miss out on a little bit with that, but I think that's fine if they want to learn how to play without augmented reality. They've got the freedom to do that. Although sometimes having the freedom to do something, I don't know, sometimes it's nice to be forced to learn something the right way. It'll be a lot boring. Well, it'll seem a lot more boring to learn how to read sheet music or how to learn by ear when you have the option to just put on some glasses and have the notes come right at you and just put your fingers where they need to go. But I think people will still want to do that. Will still want to learn how to play without augmented reality. I sure hope so. Every generation is different than the one before. If our next generation is relying on AI and augmented reality to play music, I suppose as long as they're still enjoying listening to music and hearing and being able to play music, that us older generations will still be able to relate to them somewhat, and we'll still be able to love them. Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, even though it's a little scary that some things might be forgotten, like how to play with sheet music in the long term, or how to learn by ear when it's so easy to learn other ways. But at least while our generations are still alive, I don't think we're gonna see those methods forgotten or anytime soon. But change is okay for the most part. When you learn with augmented reality, you're still going to be building hand strength and dexterity. So learning things later on, if you want to eventually memorize a piece of music or learn sheet music, learn how to read sheet music or sight read, at least you won't be limited as much by your hands cramping or not being able to reach far enough to hit a set of notes. If you've done it 100 times already, you can just focus on learning how to read sheet music and sight read. You can still choose to learn the hard way when there are ways to learn the easier way. A lot of people, of course, will stick with the easier way. But I don't think it's a problem that the easier way exists. I think it's good to have a bunch of easier ways. A lot more people will have access to playing instruments and expressing themselves from an instrument. Ultimately, a lot of people's goal for playing an instrument, whether they know it or not, maybe when they start, is to be able to express themselves in the way they, feelings that you can't exactly put to word, can come out through music, and it is quite cathartic at times. So that's going to be completely possible, and a lot more people will be able to do that eventually if there are easier ways to get to those points. So I do think it's a good thing, even if it will bring about some annoying things to us older generations. Yeah, it's okay. We'll be all right. It's interesting to think about a marching band where everyone is wearing these glasses. A lot more complex coordination could be possible if you're really into marching band shows. Yeah, there could be some quite impressive feats accomplished when you don't have to memorize certain aspects like the notes you're playing. So one of my favorite music genres is jazz rock fusion. And at times in these concerts, there are moments where the music gets complex, usually with complex timing. But usually there's complex chords as well, or melodies involved. Complex music. When it gets complex, maybe it's not as comforting, the music, but it's really just impressive. And I love being impressed. It can be quite beautiful when people do something impressive, to me. So when a group of people pull off a moment of complex music on stage in front of everyone, those are special moments to me. Because you can tell they had to practice it, they have it memorized, and there's a lot that could go wrong. It's a complex moment in the music, but they're on it and they nail it. I love moments like that. So if they were to have augmented reality helping them out in those moments, that would become a little disappointing to me. It would be less impressive, and in my eyes, a little bit less beautiful in that moment. But let me know in the comments what you guys think about professional musicians theoretically someday using augmented reality to help coordinate their shows. So I think this technology will make some moments less wonderful, less magical, but it'll probably allow for different types of wonderful moments. For example, in Guitar Hero, or watching someone play Guitar Hero on expert mode and get 100%, that's still quite impressive. It is a little sad to think that some people will be basing what was a good performance or a bad performance or practice session on what the software thinks and reports back to them, the feedback from the software, as opposed to what they think internally, what they noticed about their playing or didn't notice. I guess they wouldn't think about it if they didn't notice, though. But we don't want the software to tell us what was a good and bad performance. Here's another interesting one. On January 20th, Jonathan Lessem in Baltimore got a utility patent for an acoustic instrument. As you can see here, it has kind of a weird shape, but there's a good reason for this weird shape. It isn't just designed, it's for utility. And I think it would look quite cool in person. I don't know too much about acoustics or the physics behind acoustics, But my understanding from reading the patent is that in an acoustic guitar, you want the wood to be vibrating and resonating with the string. And thin wood is good at vibrating, but thin wood is not good at holding on to the strings, because you got to tighten those strings, and the tension in those strings are quite strong, and it would bend or crack thin wood. So in an acoustic guitar, as everyone has seen, there are these structural internal braces, these pieces of wood that are thicker, and of course they're gonna limit all the vibrating that's going on in that sound box, because they're more rigid. They're not thin wood. They won't vibrate as easily. So this guy in Baltimore thought maybe it'd be a good idea to have an acoustic guitar with less rigid structures in the body. But how do you do that with thin wood that the strings are going to pull apart? So he took advantage of the fact that curved wood, or a curved piece of thin wood, is stronger than a flat piece of thin wood. So the instrument in this patent has very few flat surfaces of thin wood. It has a curve, kind of 6 curves. If we're looking at this guitar, there's one here, there'd be one there, and there'd be one there. So like a triangle, points of a triangle, and the back would have the opposite triangle. So instead of here, it's curved back there, over there, and over here. So instead of having flat side faces or side surfaces, it has a side edge that curves along where the two top and bottom surfaces meet. Anyway, kind of a cool idea. It would look cool in person, I think. Probably a little uncomfortable to play on your lap since there's an edge, a sharper pointed edge instead of a flat surface, but you can play with the strap. Either way, it's a cool idea. Someone being creative is always fun, and it would be cool, having seen it now on a piece of paper, it would be cool to someday notice it in the wild. I think that's one of the reasons a video like this would be interesting, is because we're seeing all these things on paper as ideas, sometimes before we see them in real life. Alright, here's another one. On January 20th, Mark Hackett from Lago Vista, Texas, got a utility patent on a tremolo stabilization mechanism. Now, I don't have a floating tremolo system in any of my guitars, so I don't know much about how this works. I don't have a Stratocaster. I don't have a guitar with the Floyd Rose yet. Someday I will, and I'll learn about this. But it sounds like when you play guitars with these systems, they go out of tune easily. In the patent, he was saying when you bend a string, they can go out of tune. The other strings can go out of tune, maybe just momentarily, since you're tightening that one string. So the other strings will get tightened as well, if I'm understanding correctly, because you're pulling the tremolos, because you're pulling the bridge closer to you. The other strings might go out of tune as well. I don't fully understand that, but definitely when you break a string, it makes sense to me that some of the tension on that bridge would get decreased, so it would relax a little bit more, and the other strings would then go out of tune. So, if you break a string, yeah, you're gonna have problems. You're not gonna be able to play exactly what you want to play, but you could still use the other strings if they were still in tune. So I guess that is a problem worth solving somewhat. But it sounds like there have been other tremolo stabilizing systems out there. This guy wasn't happy with those other systems, so he made what I'm going to call a beefier system that has kind of a heavy duty spring in it and a piston and a few points along the design where you can tighten a nut against a set of threads to fine tune where all the pieces sit. And the idea is that it sits where you want it to sit. You can still use the tremolo bar or vibrato bar to move it out of that position, but I'm guessing the resistance would feel significantly different after you add one of these stabilizing systems. But it returns to that position that you wanted it to be at more easily. There's less lenience in the system, allowing for it to return to a different state, an out of tune state, because of that beefy spring and the locking points that you set by twisting nuts along at different points in the design. Alright, moving along. On January 27th in Sun Valley, California, Legator Guitars, I don't know how to say it correctly, Legator Guitars, got a design patent for a new headstock of theirs, or maybe an old headstock of theirs that they hadn't patented, but that's exciting for them. It looks like they do 6-string guitars and beyond, 7 and 8-string guitars as well, and they make guitars with multi-scale necks, which, if you didn't know that word being used to describe this concept before, I've seen them on guitars before when the angle of the frets starts to change along the neck, but it just allows your beefier strings to have a longer scale, meaning the total length from nut to saddle is longer in comparison to your thinner strings, which that idea helps with intonation, and I think it makes it more comfortable to play as well. The angle of the frets kind of rotates with your hand, so your hand can be more bent that way instead of up as you get towards these frets here, the higher frets. But I've never played one of these before. But it's a cool idea, and I wonder if this company would also do or make some microtonal instruments. I hope to see more of those in the future. Alright, another patent on January 27th. This one's kind of an interesting one. A guy from Great Britain and New Jersey collaborated to make I guess this isn't about guitars, but it's about an instrument that you use while playing guitar oftentimes, a harmonica. The solution that this patent offers is to the problem of when you're trying to sing and play the harmonica. Because if your microphone's right here and your harmonica's right there, at times you want to play the harmonica into the mic, but at times you want to sing into the mic. Which I've never had this problem because I haven't played with a harmonica and a mic before at the same time. But they made a device that allows a foot pedal to control the position of the harmonica on the harmonica holder, so it can kind of swing down and allow you to reach the mic, which is kind of cool. I have a friend who actually bought a harmonica holder device like this, just the old classic one, because he does a lot of driving and he wanted to learn to play the harmonica while driving. Might as well make that time useful, right? I mean, it's a pretty dangerous idea, so not actually a good idea. But he never got around to it, probably because of the danger factor. But I wonder if seeing this invention, if that would make him more likely to want to try it again. Because when there's a police officer, coming up next to you, you can press that foot pedal, which you install to the left of your brake pedal, and you use with your left foot, at least in my imaginary scenario. Swing that harmonica down and the police officer passes right by you, no problem. Or if there's if you're on the highway and you see an accident ahead of you and you realize I'm not going to be able to avoid this accident, you just swing that harmonica down so that the airbag doesn't explode it into your teeth. So I'll send it to him and see if he thinks it's time to try again. We'll see. One interesting thing I learned in doing a little bit of research, I had always thought that Les Paul designed the harmonica holder because I saw that in a documentary, about Les Paul back in the day. But this patent referenced a 1904 patent for a harmonica holder. And Les Paul was born in 1915, so I suppose that little piece of folklore about Les Paul may not have been that accurate. Maybe I'm misremembering it from the documentary. But I'm sure Les Paul independently invented it. You know, if they say he did, I would believe that he did, even if he didn't realize he wasn't the first one to invent it. Maybe he learned that when he was older and tried to get a patent for it. Realized there already was one. Alright, here's another interesting one. On January 27th, Stephen Barr from Delray Beach, Florida, got a utility patent for some special bridge saddles for two pneumatic bridges, like this guitar here has. What's special about the ones he patented or got a utility patent for is that they're wood instead of some type of metal or composite plastic. It seems like an obvious idea that wouldn't be patentable because having a wood saddle is kind of a classic concept that is true with a lot of guitars. But he was able to get one because he was solving a problem that hadn't been solved before. If you made a piece of wood in the shape of one of these two pneumatic bridge saddles, the tension of the string would likely crack the wood. I'm sure people have tried that many times before Stephen. But Stephen is a problem solver, I guess. And he put, at least the patent describes him putting a little metal rod through the wood to hold it together so it won't crack, which is a cool idea. From looking online, I haven't seen these available on the market yet, but it does seem like a really cool idea. I'm happy for Stephen. I think a lot of people will want to try it out. It's a great idea. You just order 6 wooden saddles and you can install them yourself. And it's a fun way to customize your instrument, change the sound a little bit. I'm sure the sound would be a bit softer and it would be cool, you know, having another component that's made of wood. Metal's cool as well, but it's always fun to customize your instrument a bit, in my opinion. Good job, Stephen. I am excited to see these someday out in the wild. Okay, finally, here's a pretty silly one. On January 27th, a patent was granted to someone. I'm going to withhold the name right now because I didn't look at it at first, and that becomes part of the story. But the patent was granted with the title of capacitive musical instrument. And I looked at the drawings for this, and I thought, what is going on here? There's some strange shapes there. I don't understand. Let me read on. I thought it was a toy or something at first because it looks like the strings are not even going to, you know, they stop at the beginning of the neck or the end of the neck. I'm not sure. I'm going to call it the end of the neck, where it meets the body. So I read on, and the abstract talks about foodstuffs. Then I look at the picture again, I'm like, I guess that kind of looks like a hamburger, those weird shapes. And then I look at who the applicant is for this patent, and it's the Hard Rock Cafe, and that connects that dot. Alright, the food stuff makes sense. So they got a patent for an instrument where you can use the actual ingredients to a cheeseburger. You put them between these metal plates where your pickups would go, and just by touching the ingredients, the bun, the patty, the tomato, the lettuce. I'm not an electrical engineer, so I wish I understood this, and I would like to someday, but for now the best I can tell is that when you touch it, somehow the capacitance changes between the metal plates or between the metal plates and an electrode that you stick in the ingredient. Anyway, there's a computer on your instrument, I'm going to call it an instrument, that detects that change in capacitance. So that signal can be used to start playing a tone. And apparently somehow vibration sensors either in the tuning heads or at the base of the neck can sense the vibration of the strings, indicating what note you're playing, and that can be used to modulate the tone that's playing when you're touching the paddy. So you can play something that sounds kind of like it's a synthesizer pretty much, but with cool dynamics and modulation that mimic an actual string, supposedly, if it's actually built as described. And there's a video of them using this. It's kind of hard to tell what the instrument itself would sound like because there's more than one audio track playing in the video. You can tell which one theoretically is coming from the instrument, but it's kind of hard to tell what it would actually sound like on its own, or how well you'd actually be able to play whatever you want to play. What a silly idea. Kind of a fun one. And then theoretically you can eat the cheeseburger when you're done. I haven't been to a Hard Rock Cafe in a while, but let me know if you guys have seen this in the wild. I'm excited to see it someday. The electric guitar inspired instrument, according to the present application, is a musical instrument, but can also be integrated to or utilized as a food plate for serving the food to the customer in a restaurant, for example. I don't know if I'd eat the cheeseburger after it's been in the metal plates of the instrument with the electrodes in it, especially if someone else was playing it. Doesn't sound too appealing then. So that's probably one of the weirdest synthesizers created. I'm going to call it a synthesizer. Okay, so those are all the interesting patents that I came across from January of 2026. Let me know what you think about them in the comments. What was your favorite? Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Have a good one.